Muted the screen. No.
Shukran for that, Ibrahim. Subhanallah. Okay, I need to start again. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Just some ground rules before we start that I didn't mention last week. Please keep your video off during the session. Please keep your mic muted during the session as well, unless you are answering a question. Please also refrain from typing on the screen or drawing on the screen. And then when it comes to answering the questions, I'd like everybody to participate as far as possible. So there are a number of people in the chat, and to get as much people to participate as possible, when I ask a particular question, I'd like people to use the raise hand feature. And then from those people that are willing to answer, those have raised their hand, I will then select somebody to give the answer, so that we have as many people as participating as possible. So I played a recitation at the beginning. For those of you that are on the Zoom meeting, you wouldn't have heard it if you're joining on YouTube, but those of you that are in the Zoom meeting, I played a recitation at the beginning while we're waiting for the time to start. And then somebody asked a question with regard to which riwayah it is. And as we know, that's the ultimate goal of this course, that when you hear these recitations, you don't have to ask anymore. You don't have to ask somebody that studied Qira'at. You yourself will be able to discern. So I'm asking anybody, okay, the Dome coach, what riwayah was it? And how did you identify that?
It was Khalaf.
Correct. How did you know it was Khalaf?
My connection is not that good, but it would have been because of what we learned last week, but I recognize it from the sector.
Okay, so what we learned last week, and I sent a reminder in chat just before we started, is that there's one change that we've learned so far with regard to rules of Nun Sakina and Tanween. And what change is that? What change did we learn with regard to rules of Nun Sakina and Tanween? Abdullah?
إدغام بغير غنة on the letters Waw and Ya.
Correct. And that is applied only by whom? Abdullah?
Khalaf.
Khalaf and Hamza. And that was the present in the recitation, right? There were a few words, but the very first ayat was recited. فَذَكِّرْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مَنْ يَخَافُ. Instead of مَنْ يَخَافُ, it was مَنْ يَخَافُ. So immediately from then already, you could tell, okay, this is the riwayah of Khalaf and Hamza. So Ikram, yes, you were right. If that is what you were guessing, it was the riwayah of Khalaf. If we just mention Khalaf without any specification, then we're speaking about Khalaf and Hamza, the Rawi. Remember we did the 10 Qurra and riwayat, and we saw that Khalaf comes twice. He comes once as a Rawi, as the Rawi of Hamza, then he also comes as a Qari in his own right. So if we just mention Khalaf, then we'll be speaking about Khalaf and Hamza. Most of the time when we speak about Khalaf as the Qari, we would say Khalaf al-Ashir. Khalaf, the 10th. Then there was also a question last week that I didn't get to answer, which was, why is the riwayah of Hafs so popular and widespread? And that's a very detailed discussion. I don't want to go into all of it, just maybe mention 1 or 2 points. But if you look at the different riwayat and the applications that are found, the riwayah of Hafs is quite easy. There's no difficult saktas, there's not a lot of imalas, there's no tasheel, only in one place in the Quran. You don't have idgham kabir, you don't have a lot of the idgham saghir letters as well. So the applications are fairly easy, and that's possibly maybe one of the reasons why it is widespread. Then also during the Khilafah of the Ottomans, then they promoted this particular riwayah, and that would be another reason why it became widespread. And then possibly one of the biggest reasons is the printing press. That before the Qur'ans were handwritten, and there wouldn't be many people having access to a mushaf. But then through the printing press, now it became mass produced, and people easily got access to masahif. Alhamdulillah, we probably all have access to a mushaf, and it was printed primarily in the riwayah of Hafs. That was, as I said, promoted by the Uthmani Khilafat, and that's probably the biggest reason why. Okay, there are still places in the world where a different riwayah might be predominant, but generally throughout the entire world, the riwayah of Hafs is now the one that most people know. On another level, just my own perspective, subhanAllah, is that perhaps it is due to ikhlas and sincerity. If you look at the sanad for the riwayah of Hafs, it goes to Asim, and it goes from Asim to Abu Abdul Rahman as-Sulami. And we've all heard the hadith, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. I don't think anybody has not heard of that hadith before. But sometimes we just hear it and we just pass it on like that. But this hadith was actually transmitted by Abu Abdul Rahman as-Sulami, the same person in which our riwayah for the Quran passes through him in the sanad. He's the same one that transmits this, transmitted from Uthman radiallahu anhu. And Abu Abdul Rahman himself says that because of this one hadith, it is what dedicated his life to teaching the Quran. And he taught for a number of years. We don't know exactly the amount of years, but it was for a number of years. They were obviously all the Qurra, they all had sincerity and they all spent their life dedicated to the Quran. But perhaps maybe because of the sincerity on behalf of Abu Abdul Rahman al-Sulami, that this riwayah that comes from him, perhaps is maybe one of the reasons why it is widespread. Are there any questions before we start? So today we're going on into the chapter of Mad. As mentioned before, we're going to be doing 2 lessons every day. So we don't have a lot of time. We've already used a bit of time now answering the questions and so on. But we're just going to do some revision first, because for some people that don't have a solid basis in the normal rules of Hafs, if we're just going to go straight into the qira'at, right, without having that basis, it's going to be a bit difficult. So for the benefit of those people, we're going to do some quick revision. So I have some tajweed notes as well as summaries, and my idea was mostly to use the summaries, just to recap it very quickly. But for this particular section on Mad, I felt it would be a bit better to actually go through the notes themselves. So you can see here the different major topics that we have, and we're going to be zooming in on the chapter on Mad. Okay, so we're looking at the chapter on Mad. So what does Mad mean? Literally, it means to lengthen, and technically, it's a lengthening of sound in the letters of Mad or the letters of Leen. The letters of Mad or the letters of Leen. So obviously now we need to know what the letters of Mad, what the letters of Leen are. So we firstly have the letters of Mad, which is basically the sounds A, U, and E. A, U, and E. Technically, it is the alif, which is always sakin and always preceded by a fatha. That's why there's no sukoon on the alif itself, because it is always sakin. It is always sakin. Then we have the waw sakina, which is preceded by a dhamma. That is the shart, the condition that must be there. It must be preceded by a dhamma. Then we have the ya sakina, and it must be preceded by a kasra. How to remember these three? Just the one word, nuhiha. And those of you that are familiar with the tuhfa, you know that this comes as the example in the tuhfa. You have the first part, nu, that's the waw sakina. Then you have he, that's the ya sakina. Then you have ha at the end, that is the alif. So these are the letters of mad. They're given in the one example, nu, he, ha. Then we also have the letters of lean. The letters of lean is when the waw sakina is not preceded by a dhamma, but by a fatha instead. The ya sakina not preceded by a kasra, but instead by a fatha. So this gives you the o and the a sound. So you have the example khawf for the o, you have the example quraish for the a sound. So the letters of lean, this is an important point to remember, they are not the same as the letters of mad. They are distinct from the letters of mad. They are treated differently from the letters of mad. However, they resemble the letters of mad. And therefore, there are times when we make mad in them as well. Saying that again, the letters of lean, they are distinct from the letters of mad. They are not the same. They are treated differently. However, they resemble the letters of mad, and therefore, at times, we apply mad in the letters of lean as well. So what does it mean to apply mad? Right? We have the topic of mad. So if you're not making mad, then you're applying qasr. You are applying qasr, which is to read the letter on its intrinsic length. We have the letters of lean and we have the letters of mad, and they each have an intrinsic length. So go back over here. Nu, hi, ha. The intrinsic length of the letters of mad is 2 harakat. A, u, e. The intrinsic length is 2 harakat. You can't pull it less than that. If you pull it less than that, then you're not making mad, you're not reading the letter. 1 harakat is a, u, e. You need to extend the sound to a, u, e. Then you have pronounced the letters of mad. So reading it on the basic length of 2 harakat, that would be qasr, reading at the intrinsic length. Then in the letters of lean, you have o and a. There's a little bit of extension in the sound. Khawf, quraish. You are extending the sound a little bit, but not to the same length of 2 harakat. It's not as long as a, u, e. There is a bit of extension, but slightly less, just o and a. We call that maddun ma, a mad of sorts. Maddun ma, a mad of sorts. O and a little bit of extension of sound. So that is the qasr in the letters of lean. When you read the letters of lean with qasr, you read it on its intrinsic length, which is less than 2 harakat, slightly less than 2 harakat, o and a. However, if you apply mad in them, then you have 2 options, tawassut and tul, right? So you have qasr, which is when you're not applying mad. When you are making mad, you have 2 options. How long are you going to pull it? You can pull it to tawassut, you can pull it to tul. So qasr will differ. If you're talking about letters of mad, then it would be 2 harakat. If, however, you're talking about letters of lean, then it would be less than 2 harakat. Again, qasr in letters of mad would be 2 harakat. But qasr, when speaking about letters of lean, would be less than 2 harakat. So nu, hi, ha, that is qasr in the letters of mad. Khawf, quraish, that is qasr in the letters of lean. Then in both of them, in both the letters of mad and the letters of lean, we can apply tawassut and tul and it will be the same. Tawassut be 4 harakat. U, e, pulling into 4 harakat. If you pull it even longer, you can pull it to 6 harakat, that will be tul. E, u. Then in the letters of lean, we don't find it as often as in the letters of mad, but there will be certain cases when you can apply mad in them, in the letters of lean. And then when you're making that mad, now it becomes the same. Remember, they differ when you're applying qasr, but when you're applying mad, they will be the same. So for example, li'ila fi quraish, you can stop with maddun ma, with qasr, but you can also stop with mad. Quraish, tawassut to 4 harakat. Quraysh, to 6 harakat. So out of the entire discussion we're doing on the division of mad, I think this is a very important one, this particular slide and this particular page over here, because a lot of people are unaware of this. Even myself, even when I started Qira'at, it was only later on in my studies of Qira'at that I became aware of this distinction between the qasr in the letters of mad and qasr in the letters of leen, which is an important distinction. To go further, mad is divided into mad asli and mad far'i, the primary mad and the secondary mad. The mad asli is also known as the mad tabi'i. Then you have the mad asli, which is in the letter of mad, is not followed by hamza, and it is also not followed by a sukun. It's neither followed by hamza nor by a sukun. Examples are nuhiha. You have nu, and then you have the ha, which is mutaharrik after that. It is not sakin and it's not a hamza. You have he, after that you have a ha with a fatha. It is not sakin, nor is it a hamza. Then you have ha, and there's nothing that comes after that. So in all of this, there's no hamza coming after the letters of mad. There's no sukun coming after the letters of mad. This makes it a mad asli. You read it without any mad, you read it with qasr, 2 harakat, without any extra pull. Mad far'i would therefore be the opposite. This is now when there is a letter of mad that is followed by hamza, or it is followed by a sukun. When it's followed by hamza, it would either become mad muttasil or mad munfasil. When it's followed by a sukun, it would either be mad arid or mad lazim. Looking at the first one, mad muttasil. This is when the letter of mad is followed by a hamza in the same word. So the causes of mad are 2. The one cause is the hamza. The second cause is the sukun. The first cause is the hamza and will give rise to 2 types of mad, muttasil and munfasil. The second cause is the sukun and will also give rise to 2 types of mad. So looking at the hamza firstly, and this is the first one that comes under mad muttasil, hamza is in the same word. Look over here, ja'a, su'a, ji'a. There's a letter of mad, e in the hamza. Su, the letter of mad, and in the hamza. Ja, the letter of mad, and in the hamza. So in all of this, we don't have an option. You must apply mad. All the qurra, all the 7, all the 10 qurra, they all apply mad in this. They all pull it longer than 2 harakat. You can't read it ja'a, or su'a, or ji'a. So for hasfa the shatubiyya, the normal way of reading, we apply tawassut, 4 harakat. So we read it ja'a, su'a, ji'a. You have to pull it to 4 harakat. You have to pull it to tawassut. Then you have mad munfasil. It's when it is followed by hamza in a separate word. So you have fi, letter of mad, then the hamza in the next word. Qu, the letter of mad, then the hamza in the next word. Bima, the alif, letter of mad, and in the hamza in the second or the separate word. And again, yeah, it will be 4 harakat. For hafs by the shatubiyya. في أنفسكم قوا أنفسكم بما أنزل. And moving on to mad arid. This is when the letter of mad is followed by a temporary sukun. What do you mean by temporary sukun? Sukun that is only read when stopping. Okay, this is just basic notes for the beginner. So this is what's going to happen most of the time. A temporary sukun will mostly be when it is due to stopping. But if you're going to get out, you'll find that there's other cases when you have a temporary sukun. So we're looking at Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The harakat on the mim at the end is a kasra. But when you stop, you put a temporary sukun. You put a temporary sukun. So you read Ar-Rahim and not Ar-Rahimi. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen with a fatha on the noon, but when you stop, you put a temporary sukun. So over here, you have options. You can either read qasr, which is not to apply mad, or you can apply mad, and under mad you have two lengths, tawassut and tul, and both of them will be applied over here. So here you have qasr, tawassut, and tul. And looking at these examples given here in the text, the lengths would then become 2 or 4 or 6 harakat. But this is the one place where the letters of leen resemble the letters of mad. So in the previous categories of mad munfasil and mad muntasil, you only had the hamza over there, and it was affecting the letters of mad. It was not affecting the letters of lean. Ya li'ilafi qurayshin, you read with a kasratan. But when you stop, you put a temporary sukoon. So now that sukoon is a cause for mad. And like it was a cause for mad in the letters of mad, it's also a cause for mad in the letters of lean. So now you can pull the letters of lean longer. You can apply tawassut 4 harakat, or you can apply tool 6 harakat. So when you read and you're applying qasr, then it won't be the same as ar-rahim, because there the intrinsic length is 2 harakat. Yeah, when you stop with qasr, quraish, it would be maddun ma, slightly less than 2 harakat. But when you apply mad, then it will be the same. Ar-rahim, 4 harakat. Quraish, 4 harakat. Ar-rahim, 6 harakat. Quraish, 6 harakat. Okay, so for both of them, letters of mad, letters of lean, it would be qasr, tawassut, or tul. Tawassut for both of them would be 4 harakat. Tul for both of them would be 6 harakat. But qasr in the letters of mad would be 2 harakat. Qasr in the letters of lean would be less than 2 harakat. Then you have mad lazim, when it's followed by a permanent sukoon, a sukoon that is always read, whether stopping or continuing. For example, ana, dhalin, its length is 6 harakat. There are no differences in mad lazim with regard to the qurra. Not in the sughra, not in the kubra, none of the 10 qira'at differ with regard to mad lazim. Okay, so not really important in terms of the qira'at, but just to go over it quickly, I have mad lazim kilmi, which is in a word, harfi when it's in a letter, referring to the hurufu muqatta'at. Each of those two is broken up into muthaqqal and mukhaffaf. Muthaqqal is when it's mushaddad, when idgham takes place. Mukhaffaf, when it's not mushaddad, when no idgham takes place. So dhalin in a word and with a shadda, that is mad lazim kilmi muthaqqal. Alif lam mim, that part lam, you make an idgham over there, so that would be mad lazim harfi muthaqqal. Ana in a word and mukhaffaf, there's no idgham taking place, no shadda, that's mad lazim kilmi mukhaffaf. Then in qaf, that's mad lazim harfi mukhaffaf. Okay, and that is the entire chapter. Okay, so it took us a bit of a while, but I felt it very important to actually go through that revision before we start with today's lesson, especially for people that's not ana. So we did nun sakin and tanween, and now we're on to mad. So we've discussed this before now in the summary, the revision that I did, right? So we have different types of mad, lazim, arid, muttasil, munfasil. Now the new part comes in, in the application of the 7 qurra, there's also mad badal and mad lean. And those are the 2 topics we're looking at today. Mad badal is one lesson, mad lean is the next one. You have the lengths of mad, 2 harakat, which is qasr. And applying longer than that, the wasut is 4 harakat, tool is 6 harakat. So now come to mad badal. Mad badal is a letter of mad is preceded by a hamza. And I've bolded that word over there, I've underlined that word over there to show you the difference, that we had 2 causes of mad. One was a hamza and one was a sukoon. Then the hamza made it either muttasil or it made it munfasil. So example of muttasil, ja'a. So you have to look at where's the letter of mad and where's the hamza. You have first letter of mad, ja, the alif. After that would be the hamza, ja'a. Qu, the letter of mad. Then anfusakum, the hamza comes after. That's in 2 separate words, so that's munfasil. Qu anfusakum. So the hamza always comes afterward. Whether in one word, whether in 2 words, the hamza is always coming afterwards. That hamza coming after is the cause for you making mad. Here we have it the other way around. It is preceded. The Hamza is preceding the letter of mad. So over here, you've got the alif, which is a letter of mad. Instead of looking after it for the Hamza, you now look before. And you see the Hamza in front. That Hamza in front makes it a mad badal. You have Iman. The ya over here, there's no haraka on it, so it is sakin. It is a ya that is sakin. Normally, you look for the Hamza that comes after to check whether it's muttasil or munfasil. Now you check what comes before. And you have the Hamza before, and that makes it a mad badal. You have the word utu, you have the waw. There's no haraka on it. So you have the waw sakina. There's no haraka on it, so it is sakin. Normally, you look for the Hamza that comes after it to check whether it is muttasil or munfasil. In one word is muttasil, two words is munfasil. Now you must check also for the Hamza that comes before. That makes it a mad badal. So all the Qur'an, right, except for one, they will read this with qasr on its normal intrinsic length. Amanu, iman, utu. So a would be the same as u. E would be the same as a. U would be the same as the other u. Both of them would be two harakat. But then Warush, on the other hand, he applies three lengths. You will have qasr, tawassut, and tul. Warush will have three lengths: qasr, tawassut, and tul. To read this way, to read all three ways, known as tathlith. So this is similar then to the mad'ari. You have three lengths: qasr, tawassut, and tul. Just to go into a bit more detail, however, when it comes to the qira'at, you have differences that are khilaf jaiz and those that are wajib. Jaiz, permissible; wajib, necessary, compulsory. So what does that mean? When you read, and most of you have read to a teacher, some of you have read for a ijaza khatam to a teacher. When you read Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, at the end there, what can you apply? You can apply qasr 2, tawassut 4, tul 6 harakat. But now did you repeat all of that every time? You read it with qasr, then you read it with tawassut, then you read it with tul? No, you did not. You just chose one of those lengths. So you chose qasr and then you read all the others with qasr. Or you started with tawassut, you pulled all the others with tawassut. And unlikely, but you could have done with tul and then pulled all the others tul as well. That is khilaf jaiz. If you just do one of those applications, it's fine. You don't necessarily have to do all of them. But the teacher should make the student aware that the options are there. That you have those three options: qasr, tawassut, and tul. Yeah, for warsh, however, it's different. Yes, there's same three options, but this is khilaf wajib. You have to do it. So if you're reciting a khatam for warsh, if you come across a word like amanu, for example, you have to read it 3 times. You first read it with qasr, then you read it with tawassut, and then you read it with tul. And if that is not done, it would be a deficiency in the khatam. The khatam would be lacking and incomplete. You have to read all 3 lengths all the time. That's obviously when you're reading to the teacher. So in the exercise we're going to do, I'm actually going to apply that for you. I'm going to read it all 3 times. First with qasr, then tawassut, and then with tul. I just saw a question that came up with earlier. It says this: to some Qur'an, pull tul 5 alifs. So I prefer not to go into the discussion of alifs. It makes it a bit complicated and technical. So I just stick to harakat. A, I, U, that's your harakat, right? 1 harakat. Then you have letters of mad. A, U, I, 2 harakat. Then you double that, right? Some people count on their fingers, right? But that's for the beginners. Looking at your pace of recitation, at a fast pace, a medium pace, a longer pace, obviously the amount of time spending on 2 harakat will differ. So you're looking at your pace that you're reading at, and you're going to judge it on your length of qasr of 2 harakat. You double that to get to tawassut. So then you double it. 2 harakat, you triple it to get to tul. Okay, so I know it's not answering the question, but I prefer not to go into the discussion of alifs. It becomes a bit technical and complicated. So just stick to harakat when discussing the lengths. So we have the exercise over here. You have to highlight and find those places in which warush will read with tathlith in the mad badal. So basically find the mad badal. What's the mad badal? You have a letter of mad. A, U, and E. Now you look before. As we said, normally look what comes after. You look for the hamza after it. In one word is muttasil. After it in two words is munfasil. Now you check what comes before. The hamza must come before. That would be mad badal. Okay, so before we start, I'm going to give everybody a chance to do it. I'll give you maybe 2-3 minutes to go through these verses and try and identify it, and then we'll go through it together, inshallah. Yeah, I think maybe we can begin, inshallah. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, the first verse. You can raise your hand, anybody? Okay, Abdullah. In what part of the word would you find the mad badal?
آمنوا.
The in amanu. Okay. Mahmoud, I can do the next one.
نعم يا شيخ. وعلم آدم in the second word.
The in Adam. Okay, anybody else for the third one? Shagufta, the third one.
وآتوا
The in wa'atu. The in wa'atu. The dome coach can do number 4.
in ala Fir'aun.
The in ad. Over here, there's the hamza, and after it comes alif. So that's the mad badal. But before it is also an alif. So I have a little of mad, and it is followed by hamza. So that would be a different mad. That would also be a mad, but that would be a different one. That would be mad munfasil. وأخرقنا in the hamza, that is the mad munfasil. The ala is the mad badal. Okay, Nasir, mashallah, number 5.
Number 5 would be Adam, Sheikh.
The in Adam. Again, similarly over here, you have ya, with an alif before. So that would also be now another mad. Ya Adam, that part, ya Nasir, what mad would that be?
It would be Munfasil, Sheikh.
Yes, mashallah. So mad munfasil. It's written as one. Ya Adam is written as one word, as you can see on the screen, but it doesn't make it muttasil. The word ya is separate from Adam. So that would be mad munfasil. Abu Bakr Abrams can do number 6. Your mic is muted, Abu Bakr.
Oh, the U before بغضب.
Correct, mashallah. You have the word ba'u, and like the others before, yeah, there will be 2 mudud. The ba'u, that would be a alif followed by a hamza. So that would be, but muttasil because it's in one word. Ya Adam was munfasil. Aghraqana ala was munfasil. Ya ba, that part is muttasil. But in the u afterward, that would be the badal. Anybody else? I didn't yet. Amina, number 7.
وآمنوا the
In Amina.
Yeah.
Correct, mashallah. Mahmouda, you can do number 8.
أوفي بعهدكم
Ufi. Amra, you can do number 9. I couldn't hear you. Say again. Just give the one word where you find the mad badal.
أوفي. أوف.
Okay, in this one, it would be in li Adama. Li, then you have Adam. That would be the mad badal. Okay, so I'm going to read these verses now, and you must try and listen for the difference in the application. There will be 3 times the word will be read with qasr, tawassut, and then with tul. There will also be other changes. There will be other madud, and it won't be necessarily the same as what Hafs recites it, but you just need to focus on the mad badal. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبشر الذين آمنوا So when you do the jump, we read combining all the different qira'at. To save time, we don't repeat the whole verse or the whole segment. We just can do it on that particular one word. That's why I didn't read it from the beginning all the time, right? وعلم آدم But if you want to bring out the meaning, then you can read maybe the word before, a few words before, right? وعلم آدم. Adama is the مفعول به. So you keep the fi'l with the مفعول به. وآتوا الزكاة وأغرقنا آل فرعون وقلنا يا آدم اسكن In number 4 and 5, it was both a munfasil and the band battle. Yeah, it was written separately. That's why I could just start on ala. But here, yeah, in Adam is written as one, so you have to read from yeah. You can't just start on Adam because it's joined in the rasm. وباءوا بغضب من الله وباءوا بغضب من الله وباءوا بغضب من الله. Okay, to save time, I'm just going to read the words in the next few verses. يا آدم يا آدم. Over there you have to read the ya with the Adam because it's written together. وآمنوا أوف بعهدكم لآدم فسجدوا So out of the 10 qurra, it's only Warsh that does this. By the Sughra, by the Kubra, it's only Warsh that applies mad in the mad badal. So when you hear this application, you hear it being pulled to 4 harakat or 6 harakat, then you know it's Warsh. Can only be the riwayah of Warsh. So in that exercise, we first did it visually, and that gave you a cue as to where to focus on to hear the application, right? So now we're going to do it just with the auditory. I'm just going to read these surahs, and I'm going to try and hear where is the mad badal. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لإيلاف قريش When you read to the teacher, as I mentioned, you have to do it all 3 times. But once you finish the khatam, now you're just reading for Warosh or you're reading in Salah, then you don't have to do all 3. You can just choose one. Okay, so they are just read that verse, all 3, right? So you can clearly see Akaduzain li ilafi. But in the remainder, I'm just going to choose one length. and we're just going to apply oneness. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. There's a question about the consistency in the mad battle. Yes, there should be consistency. Like you should have consistency in the mad adil the sukun. Whatever your first application is, that will be the remainder in the recitation. Similarly, if you start with qasr in battle, the others will be qasr. If you do tawassud, the others will be tawassud. If you do tul, the others will be tul. So besides in the first verse, where else was there mad battle in Surah Quraysh? You can raise your hand. Only two people.
At the second verse.
Okay, Ilafim, the second verse. Abdullah, what other word was there mad battle?
إيلافهم.
Okay, besides that one. Zahra. Amanahum, correct. Amanahum at the end, right? That was at battle over there. The next surah, can put your hands down. Surah Wal-Asr. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Shagufta, where was the mad battle in that surah?
Amanu.
The word amanu. The ayn amanu, it was the only occurrence over there. Next surah, Wal-Duha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. Bakr, you had a hand for a long time. I don't know if you forgot to put it down, but if you can answer. In which word was there mad battle in that surah? There was more than one occurrence.
وللآخر.
وَلَلْآخِرَةِ, correct. There was a mad battle there. Mahmouda.
Fa'awa.
Fa'awa, correct. Abdullah. The dome coach.
من الأولى.
Yes, Mina Lula. There was also mad battle over there. I think those were the only ones. So you should also try and practice in the remainder of the week, right? Try and listen to this. So I've shown you last week. Click on the link over here. You scan the QR code. It will take you to the website. So you select the riwayah of Warsh and try and listen. Try and listen for the application of mad battle. Mad battle being pulled to the length of 4 harakat or 6 harakat. When you hear that, it is the riwayah of Warsh. The next one is the mad lean. So as we said before, the letters of lean are distinct from the letters of mad, but they resemble them. Intrinsic length in them is less than 2 harakat, known as maddun ma. If mad is made in letters of lean, could be to the length of either tawassut or 4 or 6 harakat, the same as in the letters of mad. When do we apply this? Generally in the mad aril lis-sukun. Then you apply mad in them. And this is for both the letters of mad and the letters of lean. This applies to all the qurra. So the discussion we had for the revision of Hafs, it applies for all the Qurra. And now here's the last part where the Qira'at comes in. If the letter of Leen is followed by a Hamza in the same word, must be in the same word, then Warush will make Mad in it. As before, this will either be to the length of Tawassut or Tul. Unlike in the Mad Adil, the Sukun, we also have the option of Qasr. Warush doesn't have an option of Qasr over here. Generally, you will read only with either Tawassut or Tul, with only 4 harakat or 6 harakat. So it's almost like the Mad Muttasil. We have a Hamza in the same word, right? The difference is that it's not a letter of Mad, a letter of Leen. And here you can see what I mentioned about the resemblance. That here it is resembling the letters of Mad, in that Mad is now being applied in it when there's a Hamza in the same word. The other Qurra, however, they treat it as a Sahih letter, as a normal letter, and therefore they don't make any Mad over here. They just read Shay, so with Madun Ma. There are certain exceptions where Warush doesn't pull it longer. For example, the word Maw'uda. Right? So they will have Qasr in the Maw, and that would be Madun Ma. It won't be 2 harakat. It would be less than 2 harakat, like you read the normal letter of Leen. Okay, but over here, Shay, how will they read it? Shay with 4 harakat, or Shay with 6 harakat. That's the Sakina preceded by Fatha. Then you have the Waw Sakina preceded by Fatha, the other letter of Leen. So when you're stopping, you're putting a temporary sukun on these letters. So then it also becomes a Mad Adil Sukun. So the others can actually apply Mad in it. But even reading through, Warush will apply that 4 harakat or that 6 harakat. So that's his difference, that he will read it even reading through, even Waslan. So again, before we start with the reading, there's only 5 verses here. So you can try and identify it for yourselves, and then we'll go through the highlighting, inshallah. I think we can begin. Again, raise your hand if anybody has the answer for the first one. Now, when I'm just looking at the question over here, it says that when you're reading for the normal Hafs, can you extend the Mad Badal? The answer is no. You read it with Qasr. Amanahum, Iman, Utu, you read it with Qasr. It's only Warsh that can apply Tawassut and Tul, not Hafs. Okay, so in Allah, the first verse, Abdullah, what's the answer? Who is the Madleen?
Shay.
The Shay. Mahmouda, the next one?
شيئا.
Correct. Shay'a. Abdullah. Not Abdullah Kangat, there's another Abdullah. Kahaya. Correct. Samia Malik, the next one.
Certain towards كهيئة الطير.
Wow, do you have it in Tayri?
Sorry. كهيئة الطير. there is madde.
Only in the hay'a. In طير, there's no hamza. Right? So there would be no extension of the sound over there. It's the hamza that causes the mad. So only in kahay'a. But in the next verse, Sami,
Okay. Yes, okay.
number
Okay,
4.
So ata.
Yes, you'd have it in saw'ata. Abu Bakr, number 5.
مثل السوء مثل إن مثل
So,
السوء
Mathalus saw. Okay. Shukran, you can put your hands down. So I'll read the verses now, and the visual cue will help you to focus on where the change will be. There will be the options of tawassut and tul for warsh. And so I've just said over here mad, right? Mad would include both tawassut and tul. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله على كل شيء قدير شيء قدير واتقوا يوما لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا من الطين كهيئة الطير فأنفخ فيه ليريه كيف يواري سوءة أخيه مثل السوء ولله المثل الأعلى So now we're going on to just the auditory. We're going to read the verses. You don't have anything to see, but you should try and pick up not the mad badal, right? This lesson is focusing on the mad lean. So you might hear mad badal, but we're focusing for now on the mad lean. We have O and A followed by Hamza in the same word. Warsh will pull it a bit longer to 4 or 6 harakat. We're going to do this one a bit differently. The surahs here are a little bit longer. You don't get this application so often. And that's why I told you I start at the end of the Quran, Surah Nas, and work my way back up to find the shortest surahs. We will find applications. I had to go all the way to Surah Buruj from the bottom to get to this particular application. So these surahs are a bit longer. So I'm going to read, and then as I read, in that verse where you hear it, immediately you raise your hand and then I'll stop. Okay, so instead of doing it at the end, you just raise your hand during the recitation. Sami, you can put your hand down. Your hand is still up. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والسماء ذات البروج واليوم الموعود وشاهد ومشهود قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد. See, somebody's hand has gone up. Muniba, where was the change?
Afwan, ya Ustad, I'm not a hafidha yet. I lost track of the Ustad kept reading. At that point, it was the middle.
Okay, so
Afwan, I
you
can't
raise your hand when I was
identify.
reading.
I thought the Ustad would stop me. Maaf.
I was reading minhumu illa. So there is a change over there, right? He's putting it longer, but that's not the one we're focusing on for this lesson. That's not the madleen. Okay, the madleen is the O or the A followed by a hamza. الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد. محمودة.
شيء شهيد.
شيء. إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ذلك الفوز الكبير إن بطش ربك لشديد إنه هو يبدئ ويعيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد فعال لما يريد هل أتاك حديث الجنود فرعون وثمود بل الذين كفروا في تكذيب والله من ورائهم محيط بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ. So there were no other changes. Just the word shay'in that we identified. There was however إن الذين آمنوا, which is the mad badal that we did in the previous part of the lesson. So both of those applications will identify for you that it is the riwayah of Warsh. He's the only one that has the mad lean. He's the only one that has the tathlith in the mad badal. Surah Abasa. Again, as I'm reading, if you hear it in the surah, you just raise your hand and I'll stop there. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عبس وتولى أن جاءه الأعمى وما يدريك لعله يزكى أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى أما من استغنى فأنت له تصدى وما عليك ألا يزكى وأما من جاءك يسعى وهو يخشى فأنت عنه تلهى كلا إنها تذكرة فمن شاء ذكره في صحف مكرمة مرفوعة مطهرة بأيدي سفرة كرام بررة قتل الإنسان ما أكفره من أي شيء خلقه عبد الله شيء من نطفة خلقه فقدره ثم السبيل يسره ثم أماته فأقبره ثم إذا شاء أنشره كلا لما يقض ما أمره فلينظر الإنسان إلى طعامه إنا صببنا الماء صبا ثم شققنا الأرض شقا فأنبتنا فيها حبا وعنبا وقضبا وزيتونا ونخلا وحدائق غلبا وفاكهة وأبا متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الصاخة يوم يفر المرء من أخيه وأمه وأبيه وصاحبته وبنيه لكل امرئ منهم يومئذ شأن يغنيه وجوه يومئذ مسفرة ضاحكة مستبشرة ووجوه يومئذ عليها غبرة ترهقها قترة أولئك هم الكفرة الفجرة. So it was actually again just that one occurrence in a particular surah. As you can see, it doesn't come as often as some of the other changes, like the Mad Badal and so on. The next one is Surah Fath, which is a long surah. So I'm not going to read the whole surah. I'm just going to read the first few verses. And again, as I'm reading, you can just raise your hand if you pick it up in the verse. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما. So Aisha had a hand up. There was one occurrence already, two actually. But that was the mad badal, not the madleen. ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ويكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وكان ذلك عند الله فوزا عظيما ويعذب المنافقين والمنافقات والمشركين والمشركات الظانين بالله ظن السوء عليهم دائرة السوء وغضب الله عليهم ولعنهم وأعد لهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا. محمودة.
ظن السوء, and again so twice in the same verse.
Correct. The same word twice in the same verse, and that was the only occurrences so far. Okay, and we stop there. There were other changes, also the mad badal that we learned. We might have identified it in sayyi'atihim, imanam ma'a imanihim. So that's also a way of identifying warsh, and then also additionally the mad badal. Okay, alhamdulillah, finished this a little bit over time. Are there any questions? Yes, the dome coach.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykhna. The question is about the madleen
Yes.
when it's in the other riwayat, like for example Hafs and Asim. If it comes at the end of an ayah, is it counted as arid lis-sukun, or we have to give it 2 harakat? I was a bit confused on this.
As for example, li'ila fi Quraysh. Is that what you're talking about?
Like for example, something with the hamza after it.
So
like in
like shay,
like
for example, you're
sama.
talking on the word shay.
Yeah, like shay.
Okay, so you're talking on the word shay, then you won't have mad there due to the hamza, but you will look at the sukoon and then becomes mad arid li sukoon. So you will apply whatever you're applying in your mad arid li sukoon on the letters of leen. If you're applying qasr, then it will still be qasr. If on the others you're applying tawassut, then it will still be tawassut. And if you're applying tool on the others, then it will still be tool. So it just become a normal mad arid li sukoon. Whether it's a hamza at the end or a different letter, that's irrelevant.
Jazakallah khair.
Okay. Tathlith, thalatha yuthallithu tathlith. It just means to do it 3 times. When I did the mad badal, I did it 3 times. I did it with qasr, then with tawassut, then with tul. So the word tathlith just means that warsh reads that 3 times. Are you talking about the link to this video for the revision? Haniva? Yes. Okay, so I don't want to put too many messages in the chat, but if you go on the YouTube page, right, of Nur Mubin Publications, then whenever we finish the lesson, if not immediately afterwards, then just a little bit after that, it will be available. So whenever we're done with the lesson, it will automatically be available on YouTube because we're live streaming it from now. So it will be immediately available. Yes, I actually wanted to discuss this. There's a question that can we delay the class because the Shah is getting a bit later. Initially, I didn't want to start because I didn't want to make it too late, right? Because then people are tired and so on. But for us, Isha is getting a bit late. So I was thinking of maybe pushing it back to past. Can maybe just get a quick take from the people and just raise your hand if you're okay with that. To put the class back to 8:30. Okay, I see a few hands going up. So from next week, inshallah, instead of 8:15, we'll do it at 8:30, inshallah. Okay, just a few things. There were other changes that you'd have heard in the recitation of the surah for Warsh, and Warsh, as we go on, it'll seem to be the easiest one to identify. He has the most singular application. He has the most applications which is unique to him. So Warsh will be the easiest one to identify. It's also one of the ones that you find more commonly recited after the riwayah of Hafs. Also when I read Surah Quraysh and also Surah Asr, I did a bit differently in terms of where I stopped. And that is part of the science of Adul Fawasil. which is a separate science from qira'at but connected to it, and that the ulama differ with regard to where they count the end of the verses. So I stopped on the word ju' because according to the riwayah of Warsh, when you're reading according to his verse count, that will be the end of a verse. Similarly in Surah Al-Asr, they agree that will be 3 verses. But they read Wal-Asri innal insan, and then stopped on the word al-haqq. So in his riwayah, that will be the end of a verse. That's something very interesting, especially for those of you that have done qira'at. Most of us are unaware of that particular science. Some of us don't even know that that science exists, or we maybe just know that it is there, but we don't have any knowledge about it. So just maybe some encouragement for those of you doing qira'at to, inshallah, have the intention to go on to learn that as well, after or during even your studies of qira'at. If you're interested, you can message me when I find out more about that. Maybe after this course, maybe we can have a course on that, inshallah. Okay, we'll end there. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.